All right, we're going to talk about something today that most people never see, never understand, and honestly never even think about until it hits them right in the wallet or shuts their job site down. This episode is about exclusive municipal solid waste franchise agreements in Texas. What they are exactly and where they came from, how they're enforced, and how they're being used today to quietly wipe out independent dumpster companies, slow down construction projects, and force contractors and property owners into one provider monopolies. So let's be clear and upfront. This is not about weekly residential trash pickups. This is about roll-off dumpsters, temporary containers, literally construction debris, remodels, tear-outs, job site waste, or even your residential house clean out or garage clean out. And everything we're talking about here is fact-based. We'll clearly label fact versus some of my opinions. Some of this is uncomfortable and some of it is going to be ugly, but it's also real. So fact, exclusive franchise agreements were originally created for one main reason: public health. Decades ago, cities needed a way to make sure household trash was picked up regularly, safely, and consistently. They didn't want dozens of garbage wagons or trucks running through neighborhoods dumping waste wherever they felt like it. So cities said, we're going to contract with one company to handle residential trash. We're going to regulate it, we'll set up pickup schedules, and we'll control the routes even. That made sense for curbside weekly residential trash. Over time, though, those agreements evolved into what we call now exclusive solid waste franchises. One city, one provider, and full control. Here's where the problem starts. It's a fact. Those agreements were never designed for temporary roll-off dumpsters used in construction sites. Roll-off services is not residential trash. It's not weekly. It's not scheduled or route-based. It's actually job-specific and temporary. But cities figured out something very important. Here's an opinion. And it's a pretty strong one. Cities have realized that they could use a solid waste as a catch-all term, lump roll-off dumpsters into it, and then control and profit or even eliminate competition. And once that door is open, things changed fast. Fact, an exclusive franchise agreement is when a city passes an ordinance or signs a contract that gives one company the exclusive right to collect, haul, or dispose of certain categories of waste within the city limits. That exclusivity can be enforced through multiple different ways, and it depends on the city. But city ordinances are one of them. Permit requirements, job site inspections, enforcement actions, fines and citations, threats of impoundment, stop work orders on job sites, and even pressure on contractors and homeowners. Here's the key trick cities use. Fact, most ordinances don't outright say you can't use another dumpster company. They skirt around that. Instead, they say things like, only the franchise holder may collect solid waste, or unauthorized waste collection is prohibited. Or they say things like use of non-franchise haulers is a violation, and then they redefine what solid waste is so that it broadly includes roll-off dumpsters under it. Here's another opinion. This is regulatory sleight of hand, and it's intentional, and it's monopolistic. Now let's talk about enforcement. This is where theory meets reality. Everything I'm about to explain has happened to us personally. For example, Mesquite, and this is a fact, has an exclusive franchise agreement, so to speak. Mesquite actually does their own dumpster rentals. They have their own trucks, their own dumpsters. They didn't just send out letters. They didn't just warn us. They impounded our dumpsters. They ticketed our drivers when we go to pick them back up, not when we drop them off because they didn't catch them. Picking them up is when they give our drivers tickets. Think about that for a second. The container was already on site. Customer rented it. The city impounds the dumpster. We have to pay the city an impound fee. And then when we go pick up the dumpster, they issue the citation or a citation to the driver himself for illegally placing a dumpster within city limits. The city issues a citation because we dared to place a container within city limits. That's not regulation, that's intimidation. That's an opinion. Midlothian, Texas, this is another example, and this one is kind of even worse. Fact, in Midlothian, the city can put a stop work order on construction site permits. Why? Because the contractor refused to remove our dumpster and rent one from the city's franchise provider, which is Republic. Let that sink in. The job site itself was shut down. The contractor could not work and all permits were frozen. Not because of safety, not because of code violations, but because of who the dumpster came from. This is an opinion. That is using government power to force private commerce into a monopoly. Hurst, Texas. A city inspector physically stopped our driver from placing a dumpster on a job site. We already had two dumpsters on that specific job site. The city inspector would not allow our driver to do a swap out and said that the other dumpsters needed to be removed off the property immediately. No citation, no warning, just direct interference. That is not enforcement after the fact. That is active market control. Right here, my own town, Waxahachie, Texas. This one is pretty sneaky. Waxahachie, after speaking to the city code enforcement officer or the supervisor, doesn't directly ban dumpsters from other providers. And it says it right in their ordinance. Their ordinance doesn't say, no, you may not use any other dumpster provider in the city except for XYZ. Instead, they go after the homeowner. They actually allow the dumpster, technically per their ordinances, but they restrict the use of the dumpster by a homeowner, unless it's from, you guessed it, their franchise agreement provider, which is Waste Connections. Same outcome, different tactic. The homeowner gets the letter or the notice. The homeowner gets the threat and the compliance pressure. This is ordinance drafting designed to dodge legal scrutiny while achieving the same monopolistic result. There was a major case here in Texas involving TDS versus Republic. TDS challenged the way cities were enforcing exclusive franchise agreements against roll-off operators. TDS actually won. That ruling recognized that roll-off service is different, that cities were overreaching, that exclusive control over temporary construction dumpsters was not what the statute intended. But then something critical and unfortunately something unfortunate happened. Roughly a year later, that ruling was overturned. It was appealed and then overturned. And that reversal became the blueprint for cities across Texas. Cities all over Texas decided to study it, and they adjusted their ordinances. They rewrote enforcement language in their ordinances. What we see today is not accidental. It's coordinated adaptation of an overturned ruling. The Texas Health and Safety Code was originally intended to allow cities to manage sanitation, not to eliminate competition in construction waste. Cities are now using ordinance language to bypass the spirit of state law while technically complying with its wording. That's the foundation of the current problem. All right, so let's slow this down a little bit because this is where people finally understand why this matters. Every exclusive franchise agreement includes money changing hands between the hauler and the city. That money is called a franchise fee. Cities like to frame franchise fees as compensation for use of public right-of-way or cost of recovery or a way to eliminate taxation. Here's the truth in plain English. A franchise fee is a percentage of gross revenue that the hauler must pay the city for the privilege of operating. In many Texas cities, that number can range anywhere from between 5 to even 15%. And here's a key part. No hauler actually absorbs that cost. It is mathematically impossible. That fee gets baked into pricing. So when a contractor rents a dumpster or when an apartment complex pays for trash service, they're paying for the base service cost plus a franchise fee plus administrative overhead tied to the compliance. That's a hidden tax. It's not voted on by taxpayers. It doesn't show up as a line item called city tax, but it functions exactly like one. Now let's talk about monopoly pricing. When there is only one authorized provider, there is no market pressure to keep prices down. No compliance bids, no alternative vendors, and no leverage for the customer themselves. If that provider raises rates, the customer has basically two options: pay it or stop working. Contractors don't get to choose. Developers don't get to choose. Apartment owners and complex owners do not get to choose. This is the opposite of a free market, plain and simple. Now let's connect this to real consequences. When a contractor is forced to use a city franchise hauler, the dumpster rate is usually higher. The delivery window is less flexible. The pickup schedule is way slower. We've all seen those overfilled dumpsters that are just sitting on job sites for weeks on end. We've all heard the complaints that these big companies just treat us like numbers or treat their customers like numbers because they are. Emergency swaps cost more, and that delays jobs. Delay to jobs means lost labor hours, missed inspections, missed deadlines, liquidated damages on commercial projects. Those costs ripple outward. It's a fact that developers pass those costs on to their customers. Businesses pass the costs on in their pricing, and homeowners ultimately absorb all the costs. Cities say they're protecting the public, but what they're really doing is protecting a revenue stream. Now let's address the city's favorite argument, road damage. They say this all the time. They claim franchise fees are necessary for repair to roads that are damaged by heavy trucks. Here's a problem. Most cities do not track road wear by industry. They do not allocate franchise fees exclusively to road repair. They deposit the money into a general fund. If this were true about road damage, there would be transparent accounting, and there isn't. In most cases, franchise fees generate far more revenue than the city spends on any waste-related infrastructure, which leads to the uncomfortable conclusion. Franchise fees are being used as general taxation tools without voter approval. That's why this fight matters. Now, let's talk about HB 1227 because the bill is often misunderstood. HB 1227 was introduced in 2025 by Texas State Rep. Gary Gates. This was not a radical bill. This was not anti-city. It was not even anti-residential trash service. It was targeted, precise, and narrow. Here's what it actually did. First, the franchise fee cap. HB 1227 capped municipal solid waste franchise fees charged to haulers at 2% gross receipts within that city, not 5 or 15 like they're currently charging. They capped it at 2%. Not zero either. They definitely didn't eliminate it. That means cities could still regulate waste, license haulers, enforce safety standards, and collect revenue, but they could not treat franchise fees as unlimited income sources. This was about stopping abuse and not eliminating authority. Second, freedom of choice for non-residential customers. HB 1227 prohibited cities from restricting commercial, industrial, and multifamily customers from choosing their own licensed waste hauler. That includes contractors, developers, apartment owners, commercial property owners. The bill explicitly did not change weekly residential trash pickup. Cities would still control residential routes, set schedules, award residential contracts. That was intentional to avoid chaos and protect public health. So what does that mean? That means that the bill proposed homeowners, that commercial contractors, that residential properties as well as commercial properties, apartment complexes and such, could use whatever roll-off service or dumpster service they wanted. And why did cities oppose it so hard? Because it threatened two things for the cities: guaranteed revenue and guaranteed market control. Cities argued that they would lose funding, which they would. 15% of gross revenue of all trash in their city down to a 2% cap. They'd lose coordination and they would lose local control. Here's what really happened procedurally. HB 1227 actually passed out of the House committee. It was placed on the House calendar, but it was never voted down. But it actually never received a Senate hearing either before the session ended. This is critical. Literally, time ran out in the 89th Texas session and they could not vote it in or voted down. The bill didn't fail because it was bad policy. It failed because the clock ran out and opposition delayed it long enough. City lobbyists pushed really hard, the calendars clogged up, and the session ended. That's it. Now here's why 2027 matters. Once a bill clears committee and reaches the calendar, it establishes precedent. Legislators understand the issue now. Stakeholders are identified, arguments are documented. HB 1227 laid the groundwork. If it is reintroduced in 2027 with a strong industry backing, contractor testimony, property owner support, and clear documentation of abuse, it becomes much harder to kill quietly. That's our opportunity. This isn't about special treatment for haulers. This is about restoring balance. Cities regulate, markets compete, and customers choose. That's how it's supposed to work. This bill must be reintroduced in 2027, is my opinion. And it will only pass if independent haulers actually show up, contractors speak out, property owners get involved, apartment complexes or apartment groups participate, and taxpayer advocates engage. This is not about special treatment. It's about stopping government-enforced monopolies. Here's what matters now. If you're a hauler, dumpster company, document everything. If you're a contractor, push back. If you're a property owner, ask questions. And if you're a business owner, you need to speak up. This is bigger than dumpsters. This is about whether cities can decide winners and losers in private markets, and whether Texas stands for competition or controlled commerce. All right, so here's the bottom line. This isn't about dumpsters. It's not about one company versus another. And it's not about cities keeping neighborhoods clean. This is about power. This is about money. And it's about whether your city gets to decide who can and who cannot operate in a private market. It's about whether government ordinances can be used to quietly enforce monopolies and line their own pockets. And it's ultimately about who pays the price when competition disappears. Because it won't stop just with dumpsters. They'll continue to keep pushing it. Because make no mistake, once these cities start realizing they can do this to one industry, do you really think that they're just going to stop with one? I mean, ultimately they can say what electrician we use in our houses, or what plumber we use, or even what HVAC company or landscaper we use. Because at the end of the day, it's all about money for these cities. It's all about control for these cities. And who ends up paying for it? Contractors, developers, renters, homeowners. You and I end up paying for this. Most people never see it labeled for what it really is, a true monopoly. If you're a hauler and you're listening to this, document everything. If you're a contractor, ask questions before you rent. And if you're a property owner, read the ordinances, not just the warning labels. And if you're in Texas, understand this fight is nowhere near over. HB 1227 didn't lose, it just ran out of time. And so next year in 2027, hopefully it's going to be coming back, but we need your support. So make sure in the comments below you talk about, do you think this is right for these cities to be doing this? Do you think that these cities should be controlling who we do business with, how much we spend, and ultimately get a cut of every single dollar that we pay them? Do you not think these cities are already making enough money from us as it already is with their taxations that they're now trying to get into private businesses and taking more money out of our pockets? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and smash this notification bell.